from punching marshals to kicking rivals. This is what happens when Formula 1 drivers lose control. Stress, emotions, and adrenaline get blurred together. Podiums, race wins, and world championships get altered. The outcome? A few of the billionaire boys losing control altogether and producing some of the most iconic moments in Formula 1 history. Let's look at the most memorable of all time, and most importantly, what led up to the incidents. First up is probably the most memorable altercation ever between Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard at the Belgian Grand Prix in 1998, also known as the best performing video I've ever made. Now, if you haven't watched it, this was one of the most iconic F1 races of all time, for a couple of reasons. The main one being the absolutely outrageous and carnage-filled start, where this happened.
David Coulthard into the wall will stop the race. They'll have to red flag this. Terrible. Look, this is quite appalling. This is the worst start for a Grand Prix that I have ever seen in the whole of my life.
I guess you can see why people remember this race so well. There was more to it than this ridiculous crash though, a lot more. By the way, spoiler alert in case you haven't seen this race. I know it's been 26 years, but you never know. The second reason it was so iconic was because Damon Hill won it for Jordan.
Damon Hill wins in Belgium.
And this was their first ever win. Even better, they finished 1-2. The only way a race can get more memorable than this is if championship rivals crash into each other in a dramatic and controversial way. And well, that's exactly what happened. And the third reason this race is so famous is because of what happened between Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard. The rain was diabolical from the very start to the very end of the race. It just kept on coming. We all know that Spa's weather can make it get really dull really quick, but that didn't stop Michael Schumacher from building a huge gap of 30 seconds over Damon Hill. Schumacher was about to lap Coulthard, who was the teammate of championship leader Mika Häkkinen. Coulthard slowed down to let Schumacher pass, but because the rain was so heavy, Schumacher didn't see him.
Oh God! Michael Schumacher hits David Coulthard and is out of the Belgian Grand Prix.
He instantly broke the front right suspension on his Ferrari and forced him to retire. When Schumacher got back to the pits, he was far from happy. Angry didn't come close to describing it. He was absolutely fuming. He was convinced it was Coulthard's fault, saying he should have let him by in a section of the track that wasn't as dangerous. Schumi got out of his Ferrari and stormed down to the McLaren pit straight away to confront him.
He's storming down the pit lane, presumably to go. Look at him! He's saying, "I'm going to the stewards." James, can you enlighten? He's going to Coulthard. He's going to have it out with David Coulthard. This is a bit like Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna at that Belgian Grand Prix.
Coulthard said that when Schumacher arrived, he accused him of trying to fucking kill him. To repay the favor, he also said Schumacher threatened to kill him. So yeah, it's clear that it wasn't Michael's favorite day at a racetrack. Wet races can definitely cause chaos. Some drivers thrive in these conditions though.
I could not see anything in front of me, so it was one of the biggest moments that I had in the race.
And some just don't. Cue Valtteri Bottas.
Valtteri Bottas, what the hell did you have for breakfast?
See, not all overtakes are created equally. Valtteri Bottas found this out the hard way in 2021, when insult was added to the injury at the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix in Imola.
Welcome along to the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari in 2021 for the second running of the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix.
Lewis Hamilton was battling it out at the front with title rival Max Verstappen. The race was going to be remembered for their battle at the start, and for Hamilton running into the gravel.
Oh, and sliding off the road goes the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton.
But that was until this happened.
And we're going to get a safety car now, because that's Valtteri Bottas and George Russell.
So yeah, Bottas was seriously underperforming in the fastest car on the grid. Because of this, he found himself way down the order in P9. On lap 32, George Russell was 10th in his Williams. To be honest, the car had no right to be there, but this mega performance in the wet showed why he was first in line to take the Mercedes seat the following year. Hold that thought for a second. Not only was he set to take Bottas' seat, but in this race he was about to take his position as well. Russell came barreling towards Bottas into the kink at turn 1 at almost 200 miles per hour, and it didn't didn't exactly end well. As Russell got side by side, the pair smashed into each other in an outrageous crash. Russell's Williams pushed the Mercedes into the wall, got a bit airborne, and the two made extremely hard contact. They were thrown across the track, eventually coming to a rest in the gravel trap along the other side of the track. Russell took another huge hit head first into the barrier too. After checking if they were still the right side up, it took a second for the drivers to get their bearings. Once they did, George Russell hopped out of his Williams and set out on a mission. He stormed over to Bottas's smashed Merc to have a word, and it turned out not to be a very friendly one. After a short but clearly intense chat, Russell smacked Bottas's helmet out of pure rage, and at the same time, Bottas showed Russell the middle finger. Talk about an iconic scene. As you'd expect, they blamed each other for the crash.
What the f was he doing? Honestly, is he a frick or what?
What a fucking cunt.
Are you okay, Valtteri?
As I said, Russell was first in line to replace Bottas for the following season, so the tension was already there. It didn't exactly please Toto either, since he'd monitored Russell for years, helped him get a seat in Williams, and was going to be his future boss. Russell didn't do himself any favours here, but in the end he didn't end up getting penalised for the crash. Sanctions can be tough to decide on when it comes to this sort of overtake, but it's truly ridiculous when it happens between the race leader and the lapped back marker. In 2018, a young Max Verstappen found himself doing just that, but the big difference here was that Verstappen was the driver getting overtaken instead of the one doing the overtaking. Let's rewind a bit first.
Here we are then in Interlagos. Welcome along to round 20.
Max had put his Red Bull 5th on the grid in qualifying, and future arch-rival Lewis Hamilton was on pole. In the race though, the order was shaken up. Max drove brilliantly and made it to the very front, leading the race near the end. On lap 44, Esteban Ocon was on softer tyres and tried to unlap himself in his Force India, when this happened.
That is Max Verstappen, the race leader, and he has spun.
He was furious with Ocon and made it clear on the radio.
What an idiot. What an idiot.
Max lost the lead because of it and ended up finishing second to Hamilton. After the checkered flag, Max's engineer knew that there was nothing he could say that would cheer him up.
I don't know what to say, mate. I do not know what to say about that.
As usual, Verstappen's message was more entertaining.
I know what to say. I hope I can't find him now in the paddock because then he has.
He's a man of his word too, because he followed through. When they were at the post-race weigh-in, cameras caught a near fight breaking out between them.
And that has cost him the lead of the race.
And Verstappen was absolutely seething. That was Esteban Ocon.
Even after this, it still wasn't over.
Of course, you can unlap yourself, but you have to take caution, and you clearly didn't, and you got a penalty for it, so I guess that says enough.
The first lap I stayed behind. The second lap the team said, oh, you can unlap yourself if you want, so I went around the outside, but yeah, clearly he didn't give me enough space. Max, I was side by side, so I couldn't disappear, and then I saw he turned and we went to collision. I'm really surprised of his behavior after the race. We went on the scale, started to punch me, wanted to punch me and stuff, and this is not professional.
Ocon got a 10-second stop-and-go penalty for crashing into Verstappen, something a driver would usually get mad at, right? Well, Max got community service for pushing Ocon after the race, so when Esteban heard that, he probably didn't feel as bad. You won't get any community service for subscribing though, and even though Esti didn't take any proper punches, that's not always the case in F1. Back in the good old days, the Hockenheim ring in Germany was a stop on the F1 calendar. By the way, if anyone from F1 is listening, I think I speak for all of us here, we want it back. Anyway, in 1982, someone who wasn't as enthusiastic about it was Nelson Piquet. He was leading the race in his Brabham, and everything was going smoothly for the Brazilian. He came up behind backmarker Eliseo Salazar, who was driving for the team ATS at the time. Piquet was lapping Salazar and started what should have been a simple routine overtake on him. He was expecting Salazar to make it easy for him, but Salazar did the opposite. Salazar hadn't slowed down enough into the chicane, so when Piquet turned in, he got a nasty surprise. Salazar hit Piquet and sent him into the tyre barriers, breaking his rear wing and ending his race. Piquet hopped out of his Brabham immediately, visibly livid at losing the race lead. He stormed over to Salazar and decided to show him how he really felt.
I couldn't help it. And take that. Oh my goodness.
Out of nowhere, he started pushing and punching Salazar hard, and even threw a kick in for good measure, which barely missed. Salazar didn't respond with any hits of his own. He was probably too shocked to know what to do. To make it even more entertaining, it gave us one of the funniest Murray Walker quotes of all time.
Help it. And take that. Oh my goodness.
It was like he wanted to commentate on a boxing match rather than a Grand Prix, which, to be honest, is what it looked like. To make it even crazier, Piquet had mentored Salazar closely in the 70s and helped him get into F1. I mean, if he attacked a friend like this, what would he have done to an enemy? In all fairness, however, this was a very rough weekend for F1. Gilles Villeneuve had passed away just a few months before, and his Ferrari replacement, Didier Pironi, had a monumental crash in qualifying for this race that ended his career. Piquet was troubled by this, so maybe that caused this outburst just 2 days later. Who knows? But it's remembered as one of the craziest responses to an accident in F1 history. I say one of the craziest because the worst one might go to James Hunt. Hunt was fond of showing exactly how he felt, both on and off the track. After his life and battle with Niki Lauda were portrayed in the movie Rush, it exposed his legacy to a ton of new people. One of the, let's say, less brilliant parts of his legacy came about in 1977 at Mosport in Canada. This encounter with a marshal didn't really portray him in the best light, but if you know James Hunt, you know he probably didn't care. He was driving for McLaren at the time and was battling the Lotus of Mario Andretti for the win. The two had lapped every other driver except for Hunt's teammate Jochen Mass. When Hunt was trying to lap Mass, he went onto the grass, lost control and hit the wall. It broke his front wing and suspension in the process, and before he knew it, his race was over. A marshal appeared to help Hunt out of the car, not knowing what condition he was in. It was clear pretty quickly that he was fine, but he was obviously far from happy to be retiring from the race. For some reason, Hunt started walking back towards the track. Maybe it was to find his teammate Mass, who he basically blamed for causing the crash, sort of like he did in Monaco in '75. Yeah, it's not the first time Hunt caused post-crash chaos, but this one in Mosport got a whole lot crazier. The same marshal runs after Hunt and grabs him, trying to pull him back to safety. To everyone looking on, this was a completely reasonable thing to do, but not to Hunt. Without any hesitation, James spins around and does this. He punched him so hard, he knocked him to the ground. The outburst was completely unexpected, especially towards someone as innocent as a track marshal. Hunt was visibly incensed, with his hand gesture showing his disbelief at the whole situation. Just moments later though, he had his arm round the marshal. Yeah, after he realised he was completely out of order. Hunt was definitely one of the most energetic F1 drivers at the time, and in a strange way, it was for reasons like this. He was different to other drivers, more relatable, more loved. Eddie Strong didn't think so though. That was the name of the marshal who pulled the short straw that day. Strong was asked about it over 3 decades later, and he was still annoyed and upset about the incident.
How did I feel? Wronged, blindsided. Did that really happen?
He was right to be this shaken up too. Hunt hit him so hard that he cut his jaw and left him in an ambulance. We got an all-time quote from Hunt though.
I was right up his chuff. I was forced to go left. Then he suddenly moved across to the left, hit the brakes and waved me through on the right. But I was committed and couldn't avoid him. I hit him right up the arse.
I can't imagine an F1 driver getting away with saying that nowadays. Lance Stroll got away with this though. He did a shocking job in qualifying in Qatar last year and got knocked out in Q1. Alonso was literally over a second faster than him in that same session. He clearly didn't feel like having a chat after he got out of the car, and his trainer was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Lance appears to shove his personal trainer out of the way.
That's inexcusable towards a team member if you ask me. Even with all the crazy outbursts that I've just shown you, most of the drivers got penalised in some way. It's pretty obvious why Lance got away with it though.
Emotions right now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry for the language there. What is not clicking for you behind the wheel at the moment?
I don't know.
Okay. And how does this change your mindset for the weekend? Is it now a test session? Are you going to go for it in the sprint?
keep driving.
Basically, if your dad has control, you can lose control, yet lose nothing. It makes you wonder if he really deserves a seat or not. Like, are his results good enough?
Oh, that is ridiculous. That is a huge hit.
Is he really holding the team back? Are there better drivers ready to replace him? I looked into all of these issues in this video I made about Lance and dug up some facts about his career the majority of people don't know. So make sure to watch this one next. And as always, thank you for watching.